Hey everybody, and welcome back to Thread X-Ray Productions. This is Nick and Nate, plus more. I am Nick. Here with me today is...
It's Nate. You pointed up that way, but it's down here from my screen, so
really?
It confused me, but it's Nate. Hi.
Okay, hi everybody.
And also here today is a very special guest. Why don't you go and introduce yourself and tell people, you know, who you are?
Yes, I'm Alexis Corominas, and I'm the one of the co-founders of Piccolo Studio and co-game director of Arise: A Simple Story. That was the first game that the studio launched, like in December 2019.
Yes. I can attest to that. Very special guest today because we actually did a pretty lengthy deep dive into Arise just last month, I want to say.
Yeah, February sometime.
Yeah. February probably. But yeah, we did a real deep dive into it. It was kind of, what?
Oh yeah, I mean, I said literally, and you're like, yeah, I guess. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, but yes, it was a nice experience. We were talking about kind of love stories and things like that, and that one definitely stuck out to me as far as a love story in a way, obviously. I mean, a good portion of it was a love story. And then the other portion of it, you know, was a Pixar movie and it made you cry. So, absolutely loved it. So we're really glad to have you on today. So, I mean, usually we just kind of start off when we just kind of talk about like how our day's been going, you know, maybe, are you into Disney Plus series by chance?
Yes, I'm on all kind of series.
Oh, yes. Okay. So have you seen the most recent Moon Knight? Because we can get into that.
No, because I was a father 1 year ago. So, you know what happens when you have a 1-year-old baby.
Yes, definitely.
I'm still finishing Boba Fett.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm dragging, you know.
We also like to call that Book of Mandalorian. So,
okay. Yeah.
Careful, you might not be that far into it.
Luckily, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoilers, jeez, Nate.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So, far as
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, as far as like Disney Plus series go, when it comes to Marvel, what would you say is the last one you did see?
It's Boba Fett, but I mean, I have to say that I absolutely love WandaVision.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I absolutely loved it. I thought for once I saw like, you know, they are doing something different with superheroes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't found again that feeling with the series that came after that. Of course, I mean, Mandalorian, it's awesome. It's cool. It's great, right?
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, right? So, and I don't know, maybe Obi-Wan, it's such a great show as well. I don't know, but it has the Star Wars appeal and all that. But when it comes to Marvel and superheroes, I think that WandaVision is the best TV show I've ever seen of superheroes because of how they subvert, you know, the typical genre and what they do with that genre and that characters, right? So because it had humor, it was ironic, it was a satire of you know of nowadays society, but at the same time you could empathize with the characters, and it had, you know, a personal story. And you know, I mean, it's superheroes, right? It's not meant to be, you know, an artsy film, right? But it had a bit of everything, and I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah,
I don't know about you guys, but
no, I think the best thing that Disney Plus has done so far is take people who are, you know, seen as villains and put him in a new light. Because, you know, we have WandaVision, we have Loki, which, I mean, the Loki that we get is not the Loki that, you know, grew and changed throughout the MCU. Instead, we got the Loki that was still, you know, world dominating Loki, and yet we get to see this completely new journey that he went on. I love that about him. And then, Book of Boba Fett. He's normally a bad guy, and now through the events of the Book of Boba Fett, you're seeing like, okay, being in a Sarlacc pit kind of changes you.
Yeah, it might change your world look a little bit, but if you liked WandaVision for that, I think once you get to it, you'll really enjoy Moon Knight for the same reason, because it very much is outside of the typical MCU. But have you seen the movie Split with James McAvoy?
Split. I don't think so.
It's the one where he has the multiple personalities.
Oh yes.
Okay, so
in Spain they used to change the titles.
Understood.
So they have completely different titles. So sometimes it's hard to
Right. Well, Moon Knight does a lot of what that movie did. I feel like a lot better, because personally I feel like it's the best interpretation that I've seen visually of someone who suffers from something like dissociative identity disorder, but also still makes it Marvel, but anytime Marvel's doing the supernatural stuff, I feel like it's really fun, because they're kind of just showing, hey, we know how to write these incredible stories. We're just going to get crazier with them. So it's a good ride. It's about 3 episodes now. And I think it's 6 total.
Yeah, I think so.
So it'll be a really good binge.
Yeah,
when they all come out.
I mean, like right now, Disney Plus is just hitting it out of the park. I was talking to this before with Nate, and like my wife, we're always trying to figure out ways to save money. So my wife will always be like, "Well, let's get a Disney Plus. We're not watching anything on that," and I'll be like, yeah, but in like 2 weeks, this such and such show is going to come out, and I can't miss that because it's a weekly thing. And it's like, could I wait until the end and then just binge it all? Yeah, but it's like there is something exciting about getting back to the somewhat norm of the week-to-week serials that we used to have back in the day. I mean, that's the main reason I keep Hulu around. We watch, me and my wife always watch like Law & Order and Law & Order Special Victims Unit together. And so just having that thing like, oh, hey, is there a new episode this week? All right, let's go. Let's get through that. It's a different feeling than binging. Like Stranger Things is going to come out and I'm going to binge the absolute F out of that. But there is something to say that it's like, if they would put Stranger Things out weekly, I feel like just the hype would be just elongated. It would just be you'd have more to talk about. You
put that thought in my head now, Nick. I appreciate it. I wasn't thinking about that after watching that trailer, but now I am. And now I'm.
Were you into Stranger Things, Alexis?
Yes, of course. I mean, I'm a son of the 80s, so you know that. I mean, it's the universe I grew on. I mean,
So have you seen the most recent trailer?
No, I try to skip trailers.
Oh, okay.
I don't like being spoiled at all. Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Even if you say I recommend you, this movie or this book or this comic book or whatever, I don't want to know anything. I just want it, I just want it to hit me by surprise, because it's how it's meant to be.
Yeah. I personally like to do that, but for me, I feel like I kind of give in at least to the first one, and then after that, I'm like, all right, I'm not, no more.
I know that because I was a fan of Game of Thrones books. I mean, I bought the first one in 1998, so I was a long fan of the books. Right. So I had the same feeling when they were, releasing trailers for the TV show and all that. Mm-hmm. It was like I never watch trailers, but I had to, because I'm weak after all. I'm human. I love that universe so much that I had to watch it.
Right.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, my wife loves to watch also. The how do you call that? The previews of the next episode.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That they on next episode, and they spoil you everything.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. She's weaker than me. She ends up watching them, and then I have to tell her, please don't tell me anything. I just want to arrive, clear from any expectation.
I feel like that's really bad with like Doctor Who. Also, if you're a big Doctor Who fan, my partner and I, we've been binging it. We're on season 5, but they do the very same thing where it's like on the next episode and literally show you beat by beat what's going to happen, and I have to hurry to click it off the TV so I don't see it. I'm like.
Yeah.
Also, why do you put it on the streaming platform?
Oh, sorry.
Also, they do something now on certain TV shows that they do a small recap before the start of the episode.
Yeah.
And in the small recap, they are putting the characters and the overall, arcs arcs that you're going to explore. I don't like that either because it's already spoiling me what I should remember, what I should, because we are going to talk about this, right?
Yeah, the worst is when they bring up a character who hasn't been in an episode for like a whole season, and you're like, okay, well, that person's showing up. So it's like, kind of like you said, it kind of spoils it. It's like, well, crap. But the worst that ever happened to me is, did you guys ever watch the show Dexter about the serial killer that kills serial killers?
Okay, I watched the first half of the first season, and then
Well, I guess I won't spoil. And
there's parts that got spoiled for it. So I mean, you're good.
No. But we got to a point where like we weren't watching them live because we didn't have like cable or anything at the time. So we were just picking up the box sets and then watching them out after. But we were watching the box set for season 3 or 4, I can't remember. And then there's this part where like Dexter basically gets caught or whatever, and it's in the preview for the DVD that we're watching. So it's like, what the heck? And of course it doesn't happen until like the very end, and we saw it on the first one because we didn't like click away in time. And it's like, oh my God, it's this huge revelation that they put in the preview of what you're watching. And I'm like, why would you do that? You can't assume I've seen this.
You know what? We live in the digital era. I don't know why. I mean, there's no excuse to have that like an option that you could turn on and off in a platform. So if I'm on Netflix or Disney Plus, I should be able to, to switch off, don't show me early recaps.
Yeah. I know like Netflix does it every one, or I think it just depends on if they've set it up.
It depends on the show.
Yeah. It's a creative direction. It's a creative direction, but it should be a user option at the same time.
It'd be cool if there could just be a checkbox. So instead of you having to click the button, you just have a checkbox in a menu somewhere, and so it automatically skips it for you or something like that. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do the same intro. So, like, do the same thing with that. Skip the recap.
No. But I'm talking about like Nick said, like having a user options panel. Where I can switch. I don't want to see the recaps. I don't want to see next chapter. Next chapter.
Right.
This kind of things. That's it.
Definitely. So obviously you make video games, right? How often do you play video games?
Quite often, not as often as I did before I was a father, of course, but quite a lot of them. It's one of the things I like to do in my spare time.
I mean, it probably gives you inspiration in ways, right?
I have to say that as a company, we try to be inspired by any kind of media. Right, we try to read comic books, read books, watch movies, watch TV shows, because there's always, creativity comes in any format,
Right.
So you have to be open to to be impacted by any kind of thing, because you never know when something is going to resonate with you and create an idea. So actually, when we were doing Arise, a lot of the inspiration and reference we have, it's movies.
Yeah.
Because we love movies, right? And I studied cinema actually when I was young. So I love cinema and I love, all sorts of cinema. I was that kind of person that watches Iranian films of the 80s, this kind of thing. So we try to be, inspired by anything. Also, the three founders of the company come from advertising. Actually, we did interactive advertising, kind of strange experimental things for 4 years for big brands. So we are also inspired a lot by the audiovisual, media.
Yeah,
I would say. And when I mean, of course, I play a lot of games because it's my passion. It's not my job.
Yeah. Right? Well, I mean, what would be something you're getting into now? Like, what are you getting real into right now? Oh no.
But
Okay, we're
I
back.
played Elden Ring, but
I think I was gone, but I'm back now.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm loving Elden Ring, but at the same time I'm hating it because a lot of reasons, right? I think it's an incredible piece of entertainment, but it's not. I mean, I enjoy a lot of games the same way I enjoy a lot of movie genres, and that's what I try when we talk in the company. That's why I try to tell all the people that we have to be open to any kind of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
I like to watch arty films, from the 70s in French 70s, films, etc. But at the same time, I enjoy superhero movies, right? And it's important to have a very big, wide range of things that you can, soak in, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I love Elden Ring, but at the same time, I play cards games. I play Mario Kart. I play, I enjoy a lot adventure games. I love indie games, like Inside, Journey, the usual ones, but also very unknown games that, Baba Is You. I don't know if you played Baba Is You. It's brilliant, Braid, and all these kind of things, The Witness. So
definitely,
all these kind of games, especially the ones that try to do something new or something different, completely different. These are the ones that to me are the ones that's why I said WandaVision, because it does something completely disruptive to that genre, and that's very interesting, because when someone finds a way to do things differently, it's always very inspiring. I mean, I admire them a lot, right? So it's like in movies, it's just the same, right? I mean, the first time I watched a Tarantino movie, Reservoir Dogs, back in the 90s, it was very disruptive to what we were used to for that kind of movies. So art is everywhere. So and the main problem, I would say, is there's so much of it, There are so many games. I just said like 5 or 6 games. You maybe didn't know all of them, and if you start to say titles of games, maybe I don't know half of them, and maybe all of them are great pieces of of interactive culture that we all should be able to play and know. And it's a pity that we don't have 48-hour days just to play all of them.
Yeah, obviously part of what we do is we try to play games and review them, and that's part of what we do, and sometimes just finding the time to get all that can be so stressful, because like somebody will come out, of course they get early access to it, but someone will come out with a review of a game on the day of, or even like the day after, and I'm like, I just started, like, oh my gosh. I just recently started Kirby. Oh goodness, what is it called? The Forgotten Lands.
Yes.
Yeah. Kirby the Forgotten Lands. It's interesting because he's in a post-apocalyptic world, but he's this cute little pink guy, and he sucks up people and spits them out, and now he can turn into a car or stairs or a cone, or it's really cool. I mean, the coolest thing is that there is a like a co-op mode, and so I let my 6-year-old daughter play as Kirby, and I play as the little spear guy. So it kind of sucks. Like in the last Kirby All-Stars or Kirby, I can't remember what the last one right before that one was, but that one, like, you could play as any of the characters with the different powers. So like the Frost Man or the Fireman. But basically Kirby would just like throw a heart at them, and then somebody could start playing as that character, but then Kirby could also suck up and use powers as well. So it's like, that one, I think I like the co-op a little bit better, but the game design for this newest Kirby, I think I like more than the previous one, just because it's a lot more open-ended. Like, have you guys played, like, what's it called? Mario 3D World? Yeah. So that's how I would compare the new level design for the new Kirby, is very kind of 3D world, because it's not like open like I don't know, 64, Mario 64 or Mario Odyssey, where there's this big area and you just get to explore. It's nothing like that, but instead it's more like the Mario 3D world where exploration helps and they put stuff like off to the side or in secret areas, but like it's definitely not more open-ended. But I feel like it's a really good I feel like it's a really good step for Kirby as far as he's kind of been all over the place. I feel like Mario has stuck to really good platforming, and Zelda has stuck to really good like action, but Kirby has been all over the place as far as like, oh, here's one where you draw lines and that's how you move around, and here's yarn, which is just Kirby, but now he's made out of yarn.
Right. So Kirby's epic yarn on that one.
Yeah. He's been all over the place. So it's like if they want to stay down this road and do another Kirby this way and just kind of build on it, I feel like, okay, yeah, let's start fixating on one thing, guys. Stop being so Mark Spector about it. Yeah.
Well, it's been a thing with kid childhood nostalgia recently, and I don't know if it's just me or everything, but the Skywalker saga just came out recently, and I was super excited for that, and of course played the original trilogy. Or
can I say really fast? You sold me last time, and I will most likely be getting it.
Yes. Well, you talk about game design. I mean, it's just a completely different
dark side.
Yeah, Lego game. But that came out, it got delivered to my door at the same time. PS Plus decided they were going to do the SpongeBob, rehydrated, and then like Kirby, and I'm like, man, I feel like a child right now. Like I'm so excited to play these like games, for the most part.
Yeah, right.
But it's it feels good.
It feels good, but at the same time, there are so many games that I want to play. I don't have time. And
oh my god!
Every time there are more games, if you plot a graph, the gap is getting, wider between the hours that you have
right
on entertainment and the amount of entertainment there is. So. Yeah. There's a trend in the world that they are starting to adapt to different, laboral hours. Like, I mean, for example, in Europe, there are some countries in which companies are switching to 35 hours per week instead of 40. 40 is the standard in I think, everywhere. So they are moving to 35 or 34. And the first reports is that productivity is staying the same as in a 40 hours week, right? This is something that we as a company are wondering what we will do in the future. But it reaches a point that if productivity is the same, we will have 3-day weekends, which is, it will open a lot more hours to enjoy everything we do, right? Because I start to feel that I can't catch up with all the things I like. And sometimes I even forgot about things. And someone said, oh, did you finally watch that movie? Oh, I totally forgot and I want to watch
or,
it.
hey, did you watch Ted Lasso? It's like, no, I don't have Apple TV, damn it.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that there's also the debate of the games by subscription, the same way you are on Netflix and then you can watch the Netflix movies to be subscribed with, which is Game Pass a bit, and what Sony is going to do, at the end. But, it's like we have to see which is the best business model, and also the best model for the end user. Right, because right now it's for it's like when it gets towards Christmas and the Epic Games stores starts to give games for free.
Right,
one game every day. I mean, you can catch up with that. It's impossible, right?
No. Right.
And sometimes I get anxious by saying I would like to play all these, and I can't. It's impossible for me, and there's too much content. It's also a problem for developers as well, because it gets to a point that even if you do a great game, it might sell peanuts. It might sell peanuts because it doesn't depend anymore on quality at all. It depends a lot more on market opportunity. And that's something you can't control at all.
Yeah.
Because it's not in your hands. Not even in the publisher hands. Right? So it's something that at some point, I think that at some point something will happen that will realign all these actors at the same time, the hours we play, the hours we have to work, the amount of content that we are, that we can access, the amount of people creating this content, because it's pretty much very unbalanced right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I do almost miss a time where like games came out and there's just a lot less of them. Now it's like every month, even a month like April can have like 20 games that come out, and it's like you said, it's like some of them I've never heard of. Some of them might be, game of the year contenders, but they just don't quite get the attention.
Yeah.
Hold on. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, there it goes again. Someone's pissing off Maddie. And there's Mom. Guys, Dad's trying to record. Don't make him come out with a torch.
Going to what you were saying before about the change in the work hours, as an obviously outside viewer, when it comes to that, like I just seen the thing about Bungie looking to start their program with remote work in the certain states. So like with that, and then of course you have the conversation that came up with the Skywalker saga about crunch and everything about that game overall. I feel like we're at a point where it's really interesting to see, like you're saying, where the industry is going to go, like what standards going to be set, or what's going to happen overall. It's one of the part that was going to that, and it just went out the window. I mean,
I like the fact that we are seeing some of the bigger studios. We're getting to see some of them unionize, because when you get a little bit too big for your britches, like Activision or EA or Ubisoft or like any of the horror stories that you hear from them, to hear that like the little guys, they're starting to get some wins, Yeah. 35-hour work week is such an interesting, I don't want to say philosophical, because that seems weird.
Hypothetical?
Not
a hypothetical. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Point being is that, the fact that you can get the same amount of productivity out of 5 hours less, and how it really all has to do with morale, really. Someone being more motivated because they're able to, like you were saying, Alexis, go and do things that they enjoy. They get to go outside, just lay in the grass because, hey, I have five extra hours, or I have an extra day off because we do 3-day weekends or something. Being able to just enjoy yourself more is a really big plus. I think that's one thing for me that got so addicting. I started working for Uber Eats. And so with that, I get to make my own hours. I get to literally just click a button and boom, I'm working. Okay, I think I've made enough money and my wife would like to go and do something. So boom, I'm off. Having that freedom to just do whatever I want, whenever I want, is like I said, addicting, because then I go and I worked for Domino's, a pizza company, and it was so kind of like eye-opening, because it's like I went from freedom to like corporate, and then now I'm back to freedom because I'm back to Uber eating, and it's just like it's going to be so hard for me to go back to a time like that. But if I went back to only 35, I don't know, like it's weird to be complaining about how much I'm working, but it does really matter, especially with Domino's. Just as a for instance, I had a schedule, right? I had to be there at like 4:00, and then I could get off at 9 or whatever. I was a part-time because I'm a full-time daddy, part-time worker. And so, I'd have to be there by 4, and then they let me off at 9. But they wouldn't always let me off at 9. Sometimes they let me off at like 10 or 10:30. And it's like, as a worker, like, I'm totally okay with like helping out because like that's what I'm here to do. But it got to the point where I definitely felt like, okay, what if I was an hour late? You guys wouldn't like that. You guys wouldn't like me being an hour late, and then just, it would throw off the whole shift, right? Because now, they're behind on orders, or especially if it starts getting busy, right? But you guys keep me an hour later. And it's like, a lot of people listening to this might be like, oh my God, that's just how things work. And it's like, yeah, but I don't like it. Like, I do feel like regulation.
It doesn't mean we enjoy it. Yeah.
Right. I do think a regulation when it comes to work can be a good thing. Who do you want doing heart surgery on? Somebody who's been working normal hours, or somebody who's been on for 24 hours straight, no breaks, no lunch, anything like that? Yeah, I want the person who's been working regular hours. I don't want the person who's exhausted. When the littlest flick of your wrist because you're tired could nick something and then you die. Yeah, I want the person who's more well rested, the person who is just in a better working situation.
I have 2 stories about that. So allow me to tell them, because
no. That's why you're here. Your good looks and your stories.
As I said before, we were in the advertising, the 3 founders of Piccolo Studio, and 20 years ago, we met 22 years ago, right? So it's like an old marriage, the 3 of us, and we know each other so well. So that's why we work well together. We were working in advertising. I don't know if you ever watched Mad Men, the TV show.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It was about advertising in the 50s. It was crazy. It was people working all the time and drinking and smoking and doing parties inside the office. That's exactly what advertising was in the late 90s and early 2000s when I joined advertising. Because I wanted to do cinema. I needed the money. I had to start working somewhere. So I started in advertising, and because I like computers, I ended up doing multimedia experiences that back at the time were just starting, right? So it was all a bunch of very young people, right, who loved this kind of marriage between creativity and technology. And we were working literally 15 hours a day. And most weekends as well. It got to a point that we will end up working and go to the disco that was, back in the street next door. Go partying to the disco, get out and continue working, right? It was crazy, right? On one hand, it was our choice because we were very young and crazy and we loved what we were doing and we were like riding the wave, and all that. On the other hand, it was a corporate decision to squeeze people, to take the most out of people and they wouldn't do anything to change them, right? So some years after, we were very tired. At some point, you always get tired of that,
of course,
right? Because you're cannon fodder for the corporation, right? So we decided to get out of the company and we created our own advertising company. And the thing is that 3 months later, with our own company, we were working only 7 hours a day, which was half of the hours. We were earning more money and working for better clients, right? So it shows that, productivity is not about the hours, it's all about the quality. And here is where it comes the second story. That is how the brain works. It's easy as that. We are not designed by nature to work more than, 3 hours straight even, right? Actually, our brain can only focus on one very specific thing for 45 minutes. Every 45 minutes, you need to break the cycle, right? So, and the thing is that the way the brain works, you have to envision the brain like if you had, like octopus tentacles, and you had 4 of them, and these 4 octopus tentacles. I read a lot about neurology and all these kind of things because I love how, I love to understand how things work and how creativity works.
Yeah.
Right? So I found out by reading different books, but there's one that is great about this. That actually it was a book about mathematics for people that don't love mathematics. I love mathematics, but I read the book anyway, and it was great because it was all about creativity instead of mathematics, right? So it says, imagine you have these 4 tentacle octopus tentacles, and they are creating connections, in the cells of your brain, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it's like a processor that has 4 threads, right, working independently. The moment you concentrate on something, one of these tentacles is assigned to that task, and the more you concentrate on this task, the more narrow it's the area in which it tries to connect different cells. So the more you focus on something, the more tunnel vision you have. And this is scientific, and this is how your brain works. And I will tell something that everyone feels recognized, that is, you have a problem that apparently has no solution, right? And you've been like an hour working on it, and it's impossible. You go having a ball with your wife, you go play with your child, you go to the swimming pool, you go, do some sport, you come back, look at the problem, and you change it, and it's solved in 5 minutes, literally. Have you ever, do you know why this happens? Do you know why? This is a scientific reason for that. It's because when you have assigned a task to one of these threads, and you stop thinking and stop focusing on it, this task is put on background mode. And on background mode, your brain is able to create relationships between very distant cells in the brain. Thus, it's more creative. So creativity is something that happens when you're not thinking about it. Right? And the best possible way to stimulate that is to break, go to a stroll, go buy something, go swimming. The best thing is it's sports. Sports are the best thing, or just taking a nap.
Yeah.
So actually, if you have a worker that has been working for an hour and decides to take a nap, it will be, when it comes back, it probably, scientifically and statistically, it will be more productive than a worker that has been 2 hours working. Yeah. Which is what you said about the soldier. I would prefer the one that is napping every 3 hours.
Yeah.
And related to that, Thomas Alva Edison, the great inventor, did I said that right? Thomas Alva Edison? Yeah, it's said. Okay. He was a very creative guy, right? So he had he did something that he understood that of the brain, right? Yeah. So he will always do 1 hour working, 2 hours working, then take a nap. And the moment he was about to sleep, it's one of the moments in which these octopus threads get wild and start to connect very, remote cells. And that's the reason why when you are about to fall asleep, you see that you remember that you have like crazy thoughts about things. Yeah. It's because of that. It's because the brain is getting free, Right. And because it's getting free, it's creating relationships that are wild, unexpected. It's creativity. And Thomas Alva Edison, when he was about to get sleep, he would wake up and write down, what was in his mind. And there was an artist who is called Salvador Dali. So you know Salvador Dali? He was one of the biggest surrealism authors. He was from Spain. I mean, actually, not far from here. He did something that he read a biography about Thomas Alva Edison and read that and said, "Oh, I'm interested in that." And then he created a ceramic X, ceramic X, right? That he will put in his hand. Then he will, lay down just to fall asleep. And when he fell asleep, the egg will fall down, create a sound, wake him up, like an alarm. And then he will write down everything that was in his brain at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
that's why probably 35 hours a week. I'm sorry for the long story, but that's why 35 hours a week might be a good thing for everyone. Because you will focus on quality, not quantity. And that's one of the problems we have right now, and actually in the future we will have robots and drones doing all that kind of things for us. Okay. So we should concentrate on other things, on other tasks that robots can't do, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I know, not to toot my own horn here.
Here we go.
No, but I know exactly what you mean, because with editing, I used to like stay up until 1-2 o'clock in the morning doing my editing for even like here. I'm going to praise you. Even doing the review I did for Arise, I think I just planted myself down and and it was a lot. But recently, probably within the last 6 months, I feel like I've been getting the best work out of myself, and it's because I've stopped doing that. I've stopped killing myself over these videos that I'm trying to do. I had this mentality where it's like, I have to get this video out and it has to be right now, or it has to be as soon as possible. Even though like something I was covering is something everybody's covering, right? So like what I should be doing is figuring out what makes it unique to me. Right. But instead it's just like, no, I got to get it out. I got to get it out right now. So when I was able to finally get to a point where like I was comfortable taking my time on something, I do feel like my editing and my creativity of each individual video skyrocketed, because now I'm adding in funny jokes or funny visuals, and I'm just taking my time with it. And a lot of these things do happen when I give myself the time to just live. Last night I have like almost a 40 minute long video that I'm editing down. That's going to take like almost 8 hours, but instead of trying to cram it in like I usually do, I really am starting to take my time, and that creativity I do feel like comes more natural, right, rather than like forcing it and then oh no, that's cringe, or so I know exactly what you mean.
But now you know that science is backing you up on that.
Like, it's like I'm saying
I'm not being lazy. I'm being a scientist.
Yeah, of course. But when I read about that, I've been all my life. I enjoy so much what I do that I tend to work a lot of hours, right? Mm-hmm. But what I try to do is to have this kind of break moments for me, and when sometimes you think, oh, I went to internet to write, to read something that's interesting to me, and it's in the border of procrastinating, because if it's just a 5 minutes thing, 10 minutes thing, and it completely freshes you up, that's important. Or changing the task. If you can change to another task and come back to the other one later on, when you come back to that, you will have a new perspective on this, because your brain has been working on it for you. And for free, right?
Yeah.
Which, we all have experienced that tunnel vision thing that, it happens a lot with programmers, that when programmers get very obsessed with something that's not working out, many times they call out a second programmer, and the second programmer arrives, look at the screen, and in less than 1 minute says, oh, you have something wrong on this line. And the other, and it's not about having more skill, or it's just that your brain can't concentrate for more than some time.
Yeah.
And we should adapt life to that.
Yes.
Because definitely. the brain is not going to adapt. The brain, evolution takes millennia to change. The brain takes a lot, and even if it's very plastic or brain, and you can shape your brain a lot by how you live, right? And that's something that a lot of people experience, right? But we should adapt life to that, and it's hard because it's like in school. You have you get the kids to school and they put them in a classroom for 6 hours. What the hell? They should be playing every hour.
Yeah,
every hour
and then
a
get
half,
homework.
they should be playing. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, once I heard a sentence that's amazing from a philosopher that I met. He was a client when we were doing advertising. He said, the best teacher for a 5-year-old girl, it's another 5-year-old girl.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it's like that because they will learn a lot more by watching other people, you know, other kids, than, you know, pretending you as, I mean, of course you have to educate them and all that, right? I'm not saying that, but I think that the whole school university thing should be done from scratch in a different way.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, you
know,
think about like my daughter is in first grade, and she has like 2 or 3 recesses throughout the day, spread out throughout the day. The biggest one being for lunch, right? And I think about that, and it's like that's when she's going to be learning the most. You know, she's in first grade, she's excited to do it, but then you get to high school, and it's like you get one break in an 8-hour day. Right? You get lunch and that's all you get. You just get lunch. And then they wonder why people get burnt out. They wonder why people fail classes, fail tests. You know, tests are the worst because it's like probably a good 80, 90, maybe even higher % of the information that I got from class I knew, but then I'd get to a test and it'd be so stressful and it would be, you know, and so you add that on top of just like constant, just like, okay, next class, go. You have 5 minutes. You better run because it's on the other side of the campus. So, I mean, it's definitely like you could take some lessons from the first graders, you know, having 2 or 3 recesses. And I think some of the later recesses are just like 15 minutes. So they have just enough time to go outside, run around a little bit, get the energy out, and then right back inside. You know, that's not long. I mean, especially for a kid who wants to, you know, go on the jungle gym or, you know, are on the swings. 15 minutes is not a long time. But in the case of school, I feel like it's extremely important to do that because you're trying to get more knowledge, and the best way to get more knowledge is definitely refreshing yourself throughout the day.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Actually, we try to apply that to the company. I mean, we don't have a schedule. I don't care if a worker is 8 hours working or 7 or 6 or 9 one day. I mean, I'm not clocking my employees. I'm just evaluating the output. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
It's what we're building. You know, along. You know, in line with what we wanted. Yes. Okay. Great. No. Let's see why. That's it. I mean, it's not. I mean, of course, we are so lucky that we are in a environment, video games, that we can allow us to do that. Of course, you're in a factory and you have to produce, you know, 3,000 shoes a day. You know, it's not that much an option, but we are lucky, we can do it, so why not? And it's the same like remote work before, and I have to say, I don't mind confessing publicly that before COVID, we didn't think well about remote work. Right in the company, it was like
like a stigma,
it won't work. Then you know reality punches you, and in 24 hours we had to everybody was remotely working, and to our surprise we were more productive, a lot more. And the thing is, we were 14 people when we were doing a rise. Now we are 32. Right, so it's more than double, and 25, 26 of them are remotely working and will remotely work, and it has shown us, it told us that it's possible, and that it works well. And if you manage to do it well and give people freedom and trust them, and and give them responsibilities, they can pay you back with that. And I honestly don't know how many hours they work. I don't care. I just care for the end result. And if someone one day, today I will work less hours, I don't care. I just care about the end product. And I think it should be like that. And we are a company that are against crunching, totally against crunching, right? because it's what you said. I mean, I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I experienced that when I was younger, so I don't want to force them in any way, right? So,
well, it's like going to a rise, and you talking about all this, and you know, talking about the culture in the workplace, like. Everything you're saying makes sense when you look at something like Rise, and because so for me, Nick had told me to play this game pretty much since it came out, and it was one of those that he does that a lot, and I put things off is my whole thing, and so he was like, all right, well, go ahead and play it, and I had it in my library overall, and within the first hour, I was like, oh, this is special, like there's certain mediums and certain like movies and games that I feel like you can really look at and go, this is different. Just the way and you know, now with what you're saying and how it was developed, even it's like you can see how much more you're pulling from different sources and different types of creativity to make that final product. I mean, you know, being a big, you know, audio guy myself, like that was one of the first things. I basically played Rise in 2 sittings. The first level, She is what I played my first sitting, and then I sat down and then finished it from there, you know, the next morning. And that second playthrough, I put my headphones on and was just like every motion I did having the corresponding, you know, sound immediately go with it, and just I didn't have to think about anything. Didn't have to think about camera movements. Didn't have to think about functions. I was in the experience for better and worse as the story progresses, but you know,
I mean, like it is very comforting seeing how you're talking about workplace and creativity, because if that's one thing that both of us can attest to is this game feels like it was made with love. It doesn't feel like corporate was breathing down your neck. Where's that new chapter? You know, it feels like this was made with love. And to have that freedom, I mean, it's definitely something that shows in the work for sure.
Yes, totally. I have to say, first off, I mean, I didn't say it before, but the video that you posted with the both of you talking about the details and all the little things, it was amazing. And as developers and creators, it's one of the most rewarding things that there are. Not sales, but you know, having people that connects with you and connects with the things you do and that understood perfectly everything that you were putting there. Because you got a lot of details, of tiny details that we, you know, crafted with a lot of love and passion there, of course. But and we think that we craft games, we don't do them. You know, we don't make them, we craft them, because it's even if now that we are 32, we still have this culture of doing things, you know, with your hands and you know, and every inch of the game, it's like special, or trying to treat every inch of the game as a special thing, right? Sometimes it works better, sometimes it don't, because that's creativity. Sometimes you know, but I think that I mean, so. First of all, so thank you for that video, because it was, you know, we shared it with the rest of the team, and people was, you know, saying, oh, it's so great. They just nailed everything, and the tone, and you know, the things that we put there, and practically all, not all, but most of the cultural references that we put there. I mean, there are some that are very, very, very hard to know, because you should be inside your head, but you were almost inside your head. So it's great, right? But yes, we
real quick story before you keep going. Real quick story. I just, first off, thank you. I mean, that it means so much for you to say that. But real quick story. So you guys are about 8 hours ahead of us, and I go to bed. Everything's normal. I wake up and your tweet was the first thing I saw. And so that's how I got to start my day, was like, oh my God, these guys nailed it. They did so great. And I'm like, oh my Lord. It was such a good way. And it definitely, it carried me through the day. And I immediately messaged Nate like, dude, things are happening. Oh my goodness.
I mean, there's not much space for this kind of. I don't know if I should call it journalism. I don't know which is the name of what you do, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it needs a name, but I don't care. What I care is that there doesn't seem to be that much space for this kind of, critical and cultural and creative analysis of things and reflecting on why things are done, some way or other way, or what this kind of piece of culture is trying to say, and how I feel about it. It's a lot. This kind of things you don't see them often, in the media. It's a lot more all about, we have lots and lots and lots of journalism pieces about Arise, and most of them, they were just regurgitating what they found elsewhere. Right? It's the truth, right? So I think it's refreshing to have this, and I love this kind of pieces that break things into details. I am a huge fan of this kind of videos when they talk about the movies I love, or the games I love, or the songs I love. I watch a lot of documentaries in Netflix, about that, about songs that are made, movies that are made, but there aren't documentaries about games, how they are made, and they aren't. And
very few.
It's a pity. It's a pity because to me, video games it's the most complete art of them all. Mm-hmm. I grew up loving movies, but movies don't stand a chance against video games, because with video games, it's you who are feeling everything, who are doing things, who are changing things. You are the main character, right? Actively, you are the main character, and you're supposed to feel things and be shocked in our universe, and so I think there's a space there for that. I would just love in the future to see this kind of works. I think they have a greater audience. Have you seen movies that made us? It's a completely different tone, Netflix, but it explains why and how things were made. Of course, it has like a very comic tone, but the fact that you take a piece of popular culture and you try to understand how it was made and the authors behind it and how they failed on things and how they were lucky and found happy accidents on the way, because a lot of creativity, it's failing on one thing and then you found another. But you say, oh, I wasn't looking for that, but that's great. Huh? And Arise, actually, it's full of this kind of, if you watch at the first draft that we had and the final game, it's literally full of things that we found on our way.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and for that, you need to have a very fresh, open mind, to have someone, a publisher that understands you and respects you and inspires you, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that in a big corporate environment because of obvious reasons that I understand, right? Because it's very hard to coordinate, hundreds or thousands of people. I wouldn't be able to even think about how to do that, right? But when you have a smaller team, and I think it's that's why I love your video so much, because you were at the same time you were reacting to what you felt, but you were nailing it down to pieces, taking contents out of it, trying to find references to it, and when we were pitching the game, we were saying to publishers, we were saying, Arise, it's like the first sequence of Up. It's a movie, but stretch to 4 hours. That's it. That's the game we want to, right? So it's great when people say that, like you said, you said that in the video, right? Not exactly like this with this word, but you said that, which it's great. So I think this, I will pay for this kind of documentaries, and you know what I mean?
Right.
I would love to have this kind of content in my platforms. I'm missing that.
It's something that we definitely appreciate, and I can feel like I can speak for me and Nick here. That's something that me and him have been podcasting for about 5 years now. I mean, it's been quite a while. We've done different shows and different things, but it's only been within the past year that I feel like we both have realized oh yeah, wait, we're doing this because we like to, in the sense of like we're trying to focus more on what we enjoy, and we've really been trying to find some kind of voice, and we just realized, hey, we enjoy these stuff and enjoy talking about them. But going to the documentary thing, the only one that I can think of offhand would, or at least recently, would probably be the God of War, like hour and a half documentary.
That was good.
That with Cory Barlog and them, because it was well produced, saw behind the scenes. But you're right, like I feel like a lot of people are talking about the game, but a lot of people are, like you said, saying the same things. They're not breaking down as much of the intricacies as things like that. And again, just the game itself, it's one of those I enjoy, not when I'm wrong, but I enjoy being completely and utterly surprised, and that's definitely what happened whenever I played it, because I'm just like I like to say I'm a media snob, but it's just because I like watching behind the scenes. I like watching how stuff is made, and like I could see behind that, this scene had this amount of love, or this was, this idea was there. It's cool to be able to have that and really just talk about it. I mean, that's at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, when you, I mean, it's like there are some games historically that had like a director's cut in which the directors or people from the team where you will play the game and they will be talking about, okay, in this, in this setting. It's great, but I would just love to have this kind of media that focuses on popular games and not so popular, but games that deserve to be analyzed or put in context or references to each other. Or I would love to see what the people behind Inside played it. Have you played Inside?
Oh yeah.
I would love to hear something. I don't know if you have made it, but I would love to hear details about Inside, and then find the authors after that. Find the authors and know what they were trying to do. How the vision of the
ball. Yes, I'm
and the vision of the author. How do they merge, right? Because I mean, Arise specifically, the ending of Arise, we knew we made it somewhat not open, but we know that different people in the world can think different things about it and can feel differently about it. Mm-hmm. And there is no true final in the sense that, whatever you feel is good, whatever you feel is what we try to, we wanted you to put you in a context to be open to feelings, right? Mm-hmm. Not the exact feelings, right? That you should have, right? But, it's great to see how people react to that, because sometimes, it's like, how to say that? Art is something that it doesn't happen in the brain of the creator at all. Art is something that happens in the brain of the receiver, of the people who's experiencing art. And that's the truth of that piece of art. Mm-hmm. Not what I wanted to say. It's what you felt when you played. That's the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's an art to telling the story without saying anything.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, but what we do is we put the elements there for you yourself to experience and create the experience. It's you who create the experience after all, right?
I mean, well, I think one of the most amazing things, like getting into, like, I guess the more spiritual side of Arise, I really feel like it was definitely told in a way that, like, it didn't matter, like, what your religious background was. Like, it was told in such a way that's, like, if that's how it actually is, like, that's profound. Being able to basically just end your life with the people that you love, and I feel like it was told in such a way that it wasn't, like, disrespectful. It's not like you were trying to, shove down our throats like Jesus is the way or Buddha. That wasn't, like, instead it was very subtle in a way, but extremely just profound, and just makes you think, like, oh man, Because I think if you come from like a Christian background, it's all about, when you get to heaven, you're going to see all the people you love, right? And I can't speak on any other religions or whatever, but like that's the main one I grew up. Hold on. Get out of here.
Fly.
Sorry. But that's the main one I can talk in. And that was always kind of like, I guess maybe drilled into me when I was a kid, but I can still kind of see the tethers that attach a Christian background to what happened at the end, and that the spiritual nature. But I don't feel like it's trying to preach to me, which I feel like is the best way that you could do something like that. Because as soon as like you make your message way too obvious, it's almost like you're trying to lecture us. Like, okay, guys, this is what you should feel about this moment. So the fact that you're talking about how open-ended you wanted it to be, yeah, I think you nailed that, because I don't think anybody, regardless of their background, could see that and then find something wrong with it. It's like, that's
right.
a perfectly good interpretation of what might happen when you die.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear that, because that was our intention, of course. We wanted to put human and specifically emotions at the center of everything. So that's why what we did was we thought a lot on how to approach, of course, the ending and all this kind of what happens and the world beyond. And we tried to make it the more ascetic. Does this word exist in English? Ascetic, like the most universal, the most common to every culture and person on earth, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the idea of something else, it's there, even no matter if this something else is something that happens on in your mind or it's a real physical place, it doesn't matter. All cultures have this idea, right? Because we all have hope that there's something else, right? Even the people that don't think there's something else like to think in this regard. So we try to be very naive in this and very universal, and we try to put feelings in the center, right? And actually, we didn't want to talk about religions. Actually, we didn't even explain why that man died and how he died. It's not important. It's not important. Mm-hmm. What's important is that he died and he is living back, the memories of his life. Yeah. Looking at them like through the lens of age, which always puts a different filter on things, right? And one thing that surprised us is that we thought that this game will be more appreciated by, older people that will empathize more with the old man. And, we when we think about our childhood now, we think in the same way that the old man thinks, right? And you feel different. It's not the same to kiss a girl when you're a kid than remembering kissing a girl, right? It's so different. Right. It has a lot more melancholy, that feeling, yes. a lot more emotions are intertwined. But what surprised us is that a lot of young people liked it and felt, felt connected with that. That surprised us, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's because we tried to be that universal. Actually, the game script was 10 words on a paper, right? The words of each level, which is the main emotional focus of that level.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we tried to build things that didn't change that focus. That not putting more content to it than, not go against that. That's why it feels so pure, so simple. That's why it's a simple story. I mean,
right.
Loving and losing people, it's simple, actually. I know it gets very complicated,
Yeah. But, no, I mean, I feel like it was really well. I mean, the coolest thing, once you look back at it, obviously, the coolest thing is, going back to it being universal, and, it doesn't matter what religion you are. Everybody knows or has heard the saying that when you die, your life flashes before your eyes, right? Yeah. So that is extremely universal. And if that's the only way you interpret this is, oh, it's just his life flashing before his eyes, that's a perfectly acceptable way of taking this. But then, yeah, I do like what you said about he's not just reliving it, he's reliving it, through the eyes of knowledge. He knows what it is. And the best part about the game is that he's not reliving these parts of his lives the way they happened. Instead, he's reliving them through the emotion that was happening. I mean, I think the best two examples I can give is when his tribe was breaking up, and so he had to go away from the girl that he's known his whole life, that it's his best friend. There's not necessarily anything romantic there, but I think that him looking back on it as his world falling apart was almost like him knowing as an old man that this is the woman I love, so of course my world would be breaking apart. And then the other one was putting it back together after the trauma that they both felt together. And just, it wasn't just a level where Mario it was a feeling. It was a feeling of just taking the pieces of your life, putting them back together. And once again, I seeing it from his perspective, not as, oh, I'm 30 years old. No, he's an 80-year-old man looking back on this, and this is the way I felt at that time. Yeah. So nailed it on that part.
and me personally, I feel like I do enjoy the fact that I played it when I did, because as of right, and within the past year, my partner's son, he's not. Anyway, he's become a big part of my life, and so when this game came out, I didn't know either of them, and so having basically kind of pseudo adopted him in some way, like a lot of these scenes, especially when we kind of go with stories with loss, it hit me way more than it ever would have, and primarily at the end, it was one of those. I was like, I know this game's going to hurt me, and then very ending, and I'm like, oh, it's going to hurt me that way. Got it. But the level you're talking about, putting everything back together, that I feel like is an example for me of one part of the game in particular where it's just a beautiful combination of gameplay and story. Like I can still remember flying through the little, areas and, just grabbing these pieces, and I felt the weight of what I was doing. It's like, I am doing this. I'm getting to the center of my world, and, and so, just powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean,
it was almost like he was having a conversation with his wife. Hey, remember this? We've experienced loss together, but hey, do you remember when we did this together? Let's pull that back together and go through, hey, you remember when we were kids? Let's pull that back. Hey, do you remember when we first fell in love? Let's bring that back together. And obviously the very end, when we literally pull ourselves back together and we embrace each other, like, oh my God. It's so powerful, because it's just, that's how you wanted it to end.
It's how you all feel. And to actually have that visually told, it's a special experience.
During the process of making the game, when was the decision to make it completely wordless? Was that the way you were always going to do it? Or was there a time where there was going to be like a narrator or something like that?
From the start.
From the start?
Even before having the idea of the game, we wanted to do a wordless game, because we wanted to focus on the purity of things, and because, as I said before, we think that games are the most powerful media to us. I mean, as creators, is the language that has more tools right now, to do things, because it's like, in the 17th century it was opera, because it was, getting theater and music. Now, to me, the opera of the 21st century, it's video games, right? And you can mix all these influences that I was talking before, the comic books, novels, movies, etc. It all, can converge on video games. So from the start, we wanted to tell things differently to most of the games, because narratively speaking, what happens in most of the games is that you have a kind of disassociation between what you do and the story. It's like, in Final Fantasy, I love those games, right? It's not, I'm not going to criticize, I love them, right? But we wanted to do a different thing, right? So all these kind of games, you have this kind of vulnerable character that has, I have my problem, and 10 seconds later, you are with a great sword, killing people and destroying things, right? And using, power-ups and things like that. It's like, and then after a piece of action, then you have the story, which happens in a cinematic, right? And then they have words. And when you are slave to words, most probably you are slave to a cinematic, and you are slave to another medium, which is cinema, right? Which is not interactive. So we wanted the story to happen in your brain as you play and unfold it as you play. So it's your interaction in the world and through the world that creates the story and creates the, all these kind of things. And we had to experiment a lot to find the right balance of level design and statues and memories that you find, and all these kind of things didn't come from the get-go, and the game took a long time to really flow and get everything. We needed the music, we needed all the elements, because it's like an opera. We needed everything. If you play the game without music, it's probably not going to hit you, half as it does. Right? Because you need everything. You need the design, you need the lighting, you need the kind of compositions that we do in terms of you need the status, you need the music, you need everything to get there. And that's why that was to us, it was the most important thing we were trying to achieve with this game. To find this kind of narrative that employs all these tools to make the narrative happen. Not forcing it, through words. And if we had put words, we wouldn't need all these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's funny that it's like the perfect example of show don't tell, because that's what you do. But instead of showing, you're making us live through it, and it's it's such an interesting.
We're all experiencing the trauma together,
right?
Yeah. But I have to say that, in order to do that, we analyzed a lot other games that do this, right?
Okay.
Inside, they are great at doing this. They don't have an approach that they are more cryptic, so to speak. So it's hard to tell what the story of Inside is. It's more like a collection of scenes, It's more abstract, so to speak. We didn't want to be abstract. We did want to tell a classic tale. It's a classic tale. It's a Christmas Carol. It's Pixar up, But we had to analyze a lot what these games were doing, like Inside, like Journey, etc. And how they were using the tools to make you feel things, and then have our own way of mixing the elements to do what we wanted to. So I have to pay respect to all these people that were inspiring to us, because it's when you do wordless narrative, you have to create the right environment, the right settings, but at the very end, it has to click in the brain of someone. And analyzing these people, we found tricks they do and things they do, and not only that, we also analyzed movies, right? Pixar a lot. Pixar, it's incredible. They are masters, of the universe. They are amazing. and you see, the first 20 minutes of Wall-E are just a masterpiece.
Yes.
Masterpiece. It's so good in so many levels. So we always go back to watch all these video games, all these movies, all these comic books, like, Will Eisner. I don't know. Do you know Will Eisner? It's a comic book writer. It's Will Eisner.
Oh.
It's from the States, actually. I had the pleasure to shake his hand when he was 90 years old in a comic book show before he died. He was a masterpiece creator. He created the Spirit, which is a character, but his most important creations are not the Spirit, are graphic novels that he's pretty much the creator of the concept of graphic novel. This guy had a way of creating covers for his comic books that it's incredible. We learn a lot from him in terms of composition and how to tell things with the scale of the things, the all these kind of things. So I mean, that's a recommendation because it's a great. I don't know if you are into comic book, the contrast, but
Yeah, I'm trying to get more in.
Hold on. We're having issues here. Captured error while decoding the video. Okay.
It looks clear on the screen.
I talked too much and I broke it.
You didn't break it.
Okay, I think we're good. I think it was just the player because it's playing on the screen, obviously, just so I can monitor it. And I think it was just the player because it looks like we're fine. So hopefully that works out in the download process.
Comics I'm trying to honestly read more of. I actually did start reading the 2016 run for Darth Vader, the Marvel comic series. I don't know if you started that. No. If you're enjoying Book of Boba Fett, I would try that because they, like you were just saying, they actually add a lot of lore to it, and it's a really good read. Yeah, it's all on Comixology. But I'm looking through, seeing Eisner's work, and just with what you were saying, just off the covers of the Spirit and everything that's just on the Wikipedia page, you can see exactly what you're talking about. And
that's 60 years ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of these same formats now.
That guy was a visionary. These are the people that create, something for posterity and for the generations that come afterwards. He was incredible. So we tend to look at the masters because, they did that incredibly. So there's a lot in the game that we just borrowed, from watching other people, which is how creativity works, right?
Right.
Unless you're a big genius, and we're not geniuses. I mean, geniuses are few and spare, But unless you're a big genius, what you do is you make things in your brain and in a different order, and that's creativity, actually, right? It's doing the same things in a different way, right? So that's why when answering the question like 15 minutes afterwards, yes, we thought that the game would be wordless, because we wanted all this.
Right. Well, I mean, it's definitely interesting because, like, you can't count the number of games that have a silent protagonist, but when you have a story with a silent protagonist, a lot of the story has to be told to you. I can't think of anything other than, like you were saying, like Journey is a good example, Limbo, Inside. These aren't necessarily being told to you. You're able to experience them, and I think that's definitely something unique about Arise and other games like it, is that instead of you having a silent protagonist, and so now it's like, okay, here we go. Here's the exposition, and here's the mission that you're on. Make sure to go over here and press square, and so instead of that, you get to experience it, and I think that's definitely a different way of looking at a narrative, because I mean, even even in, let's say Dead Space, first Dead Space, you're a silent protagonist, but that creates these situations where you have to have this little hologram show up and it's like, hey, Isaac, are you going to go over here? Because we need you to go over here and start up an engine or something like that. So the whole time you're just like, okay, Isaac, here's your honeydew list. And you just gotta do everything. And so, yeah, it was a very different experience playing a game where I couldn't even rely on the expressions of the character's face. So I had to
You're relying on your emotions.
in my emotions and kind of his body language, and that's such a unique way of doing it rather than you're like, okay, here's the person's face. That means they're surprised.
That's a key point, actually, because at the beginning of the project, when we gathered the team, we created Piccolo, the animators were, they came from a more traditional video game environment. So the first thing they do, you ask them to do, a standing still loop of animation, and the first thing they do is like, this with breathing heavily, and then because you have to see the main character breathing heavily from 20, and we said the complete opposite. We said no, we don't want it to move like that at all, right? Actually, think about Clint Eastwood. What will Clint Eastwood do in this situation? He will be like standing still, not moving at all. Okay, and the next thing we did is go to the character artist and the art director and say, we don't want eyes and we don't want mouth in the face, right? And so it's like they said, like, we're doing an narrative game. We need, the character to express emotions. And we said no, because if the character expresses emotions through the eyes and the mouth and all that, you wouldn't need the environment to tell the story. And we wanted the environment to tell the story.
Wow.
And that's why sometimes you have the camera so far from and one character is just a spot there. That's it's very cinematographic, right? But you empathize with this guy, but this guy is not telling you what you have to feel. And that's what you said, especially again, in every moment. It's you who feel it because the music, the landscape, the camera pitch, the color palette. We had a study on the color palette of every level. Actually, on the full game, it's like we had 4 seasons. We start on winter going to spring, and we have the color palettes of that. Then we go from spring to summer, and we have the color palettes of that. Then from summer to fall, and fall to winter again, right?
Oh, wow.
So the color palette.
I didn't pick up on that. I picked up on it on the first level, but
that's very hard to get. I mean, it's an internal thing. It's very hard to of course, but it's an internal code. But the color palette, everything is working to create the story. So if we put a face, like the typical very expressive face, it will overshadow the rest of the work we were doing. And he doesn't even have fingers. He has gloves.
That's true, yeah.
We did everything we could to transform the main character into a blank mannequin. And what we're doing actually, do you know what it is, the Kuleshov effect? Kuleshov effect is something from the Russian cinema in 1910s. It's a guy that was experimenting. He created a short film in which there was the face of a person that had always the same expression, like serious, neutral expression. And he will edit a sad image with this face and ask people, how this man is feeling. And people will say, he's sad. And then a happy image, the same face, and people will say, he's happy now.
Oh, wow.
Terror image, the same face, and people will say, he's terrorized. It was the same face, and that's called the Kuleshov effect, and that's what we do in this game, because the main character doesn't have any kind of expression. He's just a block, right? It's you who put the expressions because of all the context.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a very interesting thing to look for in terms of editing, because it's the very basics of editing and manipulation of people, for good and for bad, for good and for bad, I mean, the Nazis were, the Nazis were great at that. They were one of the first who used the power of editing to manipulate people politically.
Yeah.
And they have, Leni Riefenstahl. I don't know, Leni Riefenstahl is a German documentary, a woman that was an incredible documentary. But he was working for the Nazis. But she was so talented, and she did Triumph of the Will, which is a documentary about the raising of Hitler done in Germany in the 30s, which it's. I mean, all politicians studied that because it was the master work of how to manipulate people. And they will do, in editing, they will put like Hitler smiling and he's doing the salute, and then the counter image will be a small cat in a window looking at him. This was like 50 years in advance of what everyone was doing in the world, right? It was so advanced. It was the power of manipulation. People wasn't used to that. So it impacted people a lot. And they could, convince a lot of people because they were so good at manipulating. And which is the dark side of manipulation, of course, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
But that tells you how powerful the editing is, and the context is, because it doesn't matter what, in our game, it doesn't matter what our main character is feeling, because 90% of the time you don't see his face at all. He doesn't know his face. And you still feel all that, right? Yeah. So for the most part, he could be, he's neutral. He doesn't have facial expression. We didn't even read the face. I mean, he has like an eyebrow and a nose, and it's a texture. I mean, he doesn't move, not even the eyebrows. If you remember the game, you would think he was sad, he was happy, and that's just because of context and body language, just because of that.
Yeah, I could have swore he moved his eyebrows.
I remember, like, in the animation of it, like, that was one of the things I really enjoyed, is specifically with the death animations. And really, when you jump from a higher spot, it's like, for all intents and purposes, because there's no expressions, it's this mannequin-like figure. But yet, with how the character is animated and how, like, when he makes that effort, whenever he like falls, it's very much, it's like that small attention to detail. Okay, like I'm again humanizing with this character, with this mannequin-like figure. So you're solely going on, you're going off of body language and context.
We had to spend a lot of time doing that and working on that until it felt this way and didn't impact the game badly. So, sorry, I'm going to switch the lights on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I noticed throughout this whole thing, it's like getting darker and darker.
It's steadily darker.
Sorry, I suddenly felt, I saw myself and so I was dark. But we spent a lot of time working on that, a lot. Because, as I said before, the classic video game animation, it's much more action-oriented and much more, how to say that, very expressionist and very, exaggerated. And you have to, when they do things, they overdo animation in most games. So we had to fight that a lot against that. We had to fight against that and trying to find the slightest movement that, will achieve what we wanted. But when they got it, the animators, then they really enjoyed it, because it was a matter of, there's this saying of design by subtraction. So this was animation by subtraction.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, it's been an absolute joy. Just like, actually, we started off kind of normal, where we were just talking about the industry in general, and just hearing your output or your input about working in general was just kind of eye opening. It's definitely something that I hope as more and more reporting comes out about crunch, and because I definitely feel like it was this, like, Voldemort type of thing where you couldn't say it, but lately I do feel like it's been more in the forefront, and maybe even just mental stability. What am I trying to say? Mental health. Gosh, that was a weird jump of logic, but yeah, mental health I do feel like is also it's being more and more destigmatized as like, oh, well, there's something wrong with you because you have feelings. And it's like, no, I have feelings because I'm human. And so luckily with mental health becoming more of a focus and just more and more reports coming out, like hearing your thoughts on that was like, oh, okay, wow. Like it humanizes you guys as a company as far as like, oh, okay, there are people working there. That's really cool. And then all your insights about the game have just been really great. As far as like, okay, like I kind of realized how much we have picked up on, but then how much we didn't. And so
just didn't, yeah.
It's been a great ride. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. You were amazing. I mean, there are things that of course, that are impossible to know unless you were inside the team. All the important things, all the important bits were there. So. Thank you, and congratulations.
Oh, well, yeah. I thank you so much for joining us. This was an absolute treat as far as, not only was it just a game that we absolutely loved, but now we know we can love the people who made it too. And it was a joy just getting to know you and getting to know a little bit about the company that actually made it. So, 1,000 times thank you so much. I wish we could go on forever because I definitely feel like there's so many stories.
Right, there's room.
There's so many stories that we could go on and on about. So I wish we could keep going. But hey, stay in touch.
Yeah. When we publish our next game, we can repeat that with the next game. So yeah,
absolutely.
You're definitely one that I want to look out for now. As soon as I see a trailer with Piccolo on it, my hairs are gonna stick up on the back of my neck, and I'm gonna be like, I can't wait. Like, not in a negative way, but this definitely was just a game I kind of just picked up like, oh, hey, it's December. Not a lot of games come out in December. And I picked it up and I'm just like, oh, it's so glad I did. And we're gonna go ahead and end it here. Thank you guys so much for joining us on today's special episode of Nick and Nate Plus More. I was Nick.
And I was Nate.
And...
thank you. So I'm Alexis. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. It's been a pleasure as well.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and you guys have a good day. Fingers.